spring day. It's t-shirt weather. So up by the beef farm, no beef, the moo-moos, probably on somebody's dinner plate. Rachael Reeves has come in for a bit of a crop of dinner again, so too has Angela Rayner, West Streeting, and I can't remember, is West Streeting at Ilford? I can't remember. So there's a few, aren't there? Labour MPs who are now experiencing getting onto the thick end of why aren't you protecting the anti-Israelis in that part of the world enough? Making a lot for their own back. They have done. This is the consequence of the cult of sentimentality that's come in actually since the 60s. It wasn't the 90s, or it started the change under John Major when Herbert charged under Tony Blair in 97 of victimhood cultures, but it goes back to the 60s with the liberalisation of society and politics and hedonism. You can be what you want to be. That reality is what you construct, and therefore there are no bounds, or certainly no bounds on family life. Actually, the family life is seen as passé, hence the attacks on, hence the various laws, liberalising laws, so-called, which undermine the concept of marriage and family life. That's one other discussion anyway. So this is what the end result is, that Rachael Reeves is now experiencing this. See, politicians, the concept of actually Parliament is that MPs are commoners. They sit in the Commons. They should be drawn from you and me. Because going back, there were MPs under the absolute monarchy of Charles I. Then we had that little skirmish called the Civil War. Then a republic under Cromwell. Then the Restoration, Charles II in 1642. Restoration of Charles II. Scrub that. The dates. Where the power was firmly in the hands of the MPs, and then modified by the House of Lords, which were the nobility. Then that, over the centuries since, with increasing suffrage, that is the right to vote, that MPs became more and more as commoners, or that was a theory at least. And to their credit, this is what Labour did champion more than in the other parties. You would see trade union shop floor, you see shop floor shop stewards be noted as leaders on the shop floor, bargaining with the employers on things like tea breaks and better pay conditions, all that sort of thing. They then got sucked into the Labour Party machinery, as that was the outlet for the politics. They get selected as a candidate, they stand and become MPs. This was well understood, and such MPs were respected. Alan Johnson, he was a veteran Labour MP. He started off as a postman, and this was the route that he took, more or less. And he was known in his community as the postman, and that was what he came from. Labour MP in, I think, Swansea East, Caroline something or other. She was a noted community worker, and then she got noticed again by the party machinery, and there was a candidate and she got voted into power, but she came from her community and rose from that with that community support to become an MP. But she's a rarity. Look at West Streeting and also Nick Clegg with Lib Dems. Both left university, went straight into, I think both did a PP, that's politics, philosophy and economics. both then went to work in politics for either a think tank or Nick Clegg's case for the European Commission. So they know nothing else other than that. Then became selected as MPs, candidates to become MPs. They stood, and they've risen, but they're career politicians. They're not of you. They aren't you, and that's the disconnect, and that's the source of the mistrust, shall we say. That people aren't, MPs aren't. Rachael Reeves, go back to her. I think she went to the London School of Economics. She became some sort of a economist at Halifax, and she was in the mortgage division just before 2010, when the subprime crisis hit, collateralized debt obligations, and the credit crunch, as you all know, from 2008 onwards. Yeah, that's not really talked about much. She then went to the Bank of England as an economist and an advisor there, and she thinks she sat on the board, on the interest rate setting board. I know she was one of the deputies under Mark Carney, I think. She's not that long since she left, and then she got poached by Labour, got promoted to a seat, stood as a candidate, got elected. Now she's Shadow Chancellor, because she knows how to keep the corporatists in the city happy. Labour are as much corporatist as the Tories are, if not more so. It's just that I suppose now Labour are open about it, while supposedly being on the side of the worker. Well, you can't have both. Anyway, so she's been closeted in that world of first of all academia, then closeted in terms of high finance. So she's a world away from John Prescott. Do you remember in 2001 he got into skirmish with that guy? He came onto him, the guy with the mullet, and threw a couple of punches. So John Prescott then threw several punches back. Good. And you wouldn't see Nye Bevan folding in front of those people that Rachael Reeves spoke to. Nor would you see Angela Rayner, also the people that Angela Rayner having to confront and West Streeting and many, many other MPs, because they have a presence. That won't stop. But even Nye Bevan, he would have been taken out by the guy who took out David Amess and the MP for Finchley, forget his name now, sorry, I'm terrible with names. He's standing down in the next general election because of the death threats that he and his staff have faced, and also his family have faced, from the certain demographic. So even if you had Nye Bevan in these constituencies, they would still face the same threats, if not get outright ended their life in the way that David Amess had his life ended. There's only so much presence and only so much self-defense you can do, and that won't protect you against anybody coming at you with a bang bang or a machete or some C4 or a can of petrol, for instance. So the power, traditionally the power battles in this country have been enforced by the police to take place upwards into the politics. Somebody will stand on the ticket of these are their values and these are the values of their parties, and then get elected. And hopefully the opposition would then go away and keep quiet. Well, since 2016 that's not been the case, where the concept of losers' dignity went out the window when the Ramonas just kept on Ramoning, and they still are Ramoning. So which is why it's pointless. Now, I would say the politics is rather pointless and MPs are rather pointless. As we've seen since 2016, the power battles aren't upwards to MPs and who we vote into power to represent us as a part of a majority government, but in terms of who's the power battles are between groups on the streets. So we're cutting, rather than the power battles taking place within Parliament, with government benches and the opposition benches, and within opposition parties, and also that within political parties, the power battles now don't take place there because Parliament is completely irrelevant. It can't keep up. It's not swift enough. The battles now are on the streets, with the various protest marches and counter marches, and sharp words at the edges of the marches, like at the Iranian dissident. And you can't go anywhere near those pro-Palestine marches with the Union flag, or the US flag even, or if you're wearing a Star of David, or if you're wearing kippah or anything like that, you're advised to keep away because the danger. And likewise, if there was a march along those lines from the pro-UK, there would be a danger of, actually we have seen this, of counter demonstrations. I mean, Douglas Murray held a fundraising event for families of IDF soldiers. He held this in theatre in London. There was a big demonstration outside the first theatre which had to shut because the staff had death threats against them. So we moved to another one, and again counter demonstration outside. So that's where the fault lines are. That's where the power battles are, I should say, between these different groups. Not upwards to politicians because they can't handle it and they're powerless. It's between, I would say, us and them. Am I a them or an us? That's rather irrelevant, really. But certainly the power battles aren't in the chamber of politics anymore, in Westminster or in the Senate. They are between different groups of different sizes, sizing up against each other, which is why you need to learn some self-defense, get fit. This is why I spoke to somebody yesterday, my barber, about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes. There's a guy I know who's done this, and even then, as somebody said to me this morning, learning any sort of martial arts like that still won't protect you against anybody with a bang bang, or a machete, or something to stab you with, or to hack you into pieces, or slit your throat, or to drive a truck into you, or that they'll detonate some C4 around you in a crowded place, or anything along those lines. So the end result is that even you still need to do MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for your some sort of self-defense and some sort of at least getting into shape, at least know how to handle yourself. It's because that's the way that things are going, unfortunately. You need to be vigilant. But she needs to, Rachael Reeves, she's out of her depth, unfortunately, as are a lot of them. That's the direction of travel, and that's where the power battles are. They're on the streets, in the communities. They're not in the chamber, but you have to think about who you select, who is going to represent you. The people in your community. You need people you can relate to. Ideally, you need to be that guy you know in the office, or the woman you know on the office, or the woman you know who's been putting away the jam shortbread into the packets, who does that for her living, or the guy who might be loading the pallets of that onto the truck, or the truck drivers. Somebody in ordinary jobs, somebody has a good grasp and has good insight of what's going on, because there's a lot of people. Because what I've seen is that the people supposedly in academia, supposedly and in the professions, they have very, very little insight. Very little insight. So I need to be recruiting people from in doing the ordinary jobs, the people in ordinary everyday life can relate to, but they're overlooked most of the time. So lovely out here, lovely and sunny, and hopefully getting a bit of a tan, taking a bit of, it's warm enough for me to go without my t-shirt actually. If the wind stays down, I might take it off. Get some vitamin D all over me. It's just lovely up here. It really is. Just have a look around what we're looking at. That's the Galway, and the Galway's in that direction. That's the Rallt. That's a new house that's been built. Down there's Buttington. I'll have to go up the Rallt again one day. I didn't expect it to be this good. Washing is on the line. So, think about who we select as MPs, as candidates firstly, then who we vote for. Then think about how, be vigilant about what groups are around you, and beware that the discussions that take place are rather the discussions aren't taking place between groups, two MPs, for that to be reflected in in Commons or whatever else. They are between different groups and between different people. That's where the power battle is taking place. Will vow, everyone.